welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Taurus, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for Gemini season or the month of June 2026. Whatever your timing paradigm is, I am here for it and I hope you are well. I'm using the 777 Tarot for you today, my Bulgarian deck. And before the reading begins, if it resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end via the links in the description box below. One link takes you to Selfie if you're looking for just the extended for this video. But if you'd like access to all of the extended content that I make, and there's quite a bit, you might consider coming over to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, on the Circle platform. There you can get access, obviously, to all of the extended content for all of the signs that I do every month, but also the weekly energy readings that I do. So that's, it's probably coming up another 4 hours of content a month. And you'd have the opportunity to participate in the Deccan Walk, which is proving to be completely fucking life-changing. We are 7 in, I think, to 36 Decans, and it's having a really extraordinary effect on the people who are participating in it. I just love it. I'm so glad that we did that. If you join at the higher tier, you can come participate in the live classes that we run over there in all sorts of modalities, including traditional witchcraft, chaos magic, the shadow stuff, numerology. There's all sorts over there, not just tarot. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, links for that are in the description box below, as are the links to book a personal reading with me and links to some of the classes that I've actually put up for sale. These are live classes that we've recorded. If you can't commit to coming over to the private community, but you still want to learn some stuff, maybe that might be for you. Anywho, let's get on with some stuff here, Taurus. Let's discuss what we're actually going to do here today. First thing we're going to do is ask the most important question that we can ask in 2026. Where am I right now? Not what are we afraid of, not what's coming down the road later on, or any of those things. It's just like, where am I right now? And then, inspired by the Deccan Walk somewhat, and Gemini 1, 2 and 3 that we're in at the moment, we're going to be looking at what aspect of your worldview or your belief structure, your belief systems, your thinking generally, is ripe for revision right now, because it seems to be the way that it's hitting everybody this season. So we're going to have a look at that, and then we'll finish up with what is simply the next step. Where do you put your hoof down next? We don't need to worry about anything other than what is the next step. In the extended, we will expand on everything that we've talked about here. So I hope that this is all right for you. This is what I have. So let's start off with having a look where you are right now, Taurus. Oh, that one. Page of Wands. Oh, I like that. Ooh, we've got the Two of Wands on its side. Let's have a little look. One last card for Taurus, please. Page of Pentacles, which I am going to decide is also on its side. I think it was kind of like that, but I feel like it's more sideways than it is reversed. So we've got double pages. We've got a Two of Wands. And we also have an Ace of Wands at the bottom of the deck here. Now, I like this very much because it does rather feel like everything is ripe with possibility, probability, possibility. I said that already, didn't I? And potential. And we see this with the Ace of Wands. It's almost like someone's lit a fire underneath you. And what's really interesting about it is that you have absolutely no idea where you're going with it. It's like there are formulations of things that possibly you might like to do that are kind of swirling around in your head. But it's almost like at this point, it isn't as much about what you pick as your willingness to take the journey. Do you see what I mean, Taurus? Because I love this upward Page of Wands. I mean, he's so willing, and look at him. He's just like, got this corona of the sun just like shining behind his head. It's like, it's the opening of brand new vistas, I think. What's interesting is if you have a look in the background of this Page of Wands right here, we've got a similar sort of landscape to the one that we've got here too. So although we've got the sense that, there are mountains in the background here, they're a little bit further off yet. We're not quite at the point where we are needing to make concrete decisions about what we do next, because this would be arriving in the Two of Wands. And like I said, it's not quite there yet. you seem to be enjoying the sensation of simply being in this potential state, which is not something that I would necessarily have said you would have been comfortable with a few years ago, perhaps even 6 months ago, Taurus. But you seem to be able to vibe in that space a lot better than you ever have been before. It's almost like, actually, I'll correct myself ever so slightly. It's more like you're enjoying being in a space where all things are possible without needing to make a decision about what you're going to do. Oh, that's quite the that's quite the shift in your thinking right there. To the extent that I would say that there is a certain enjoyment that you're getting out of not needing to make a decision about committing to one path over another at the moment. It's like everything's kind of swirling around in its potential state, and that's okay, because there's a deep awareness that there are things that are also still shifting in the mix, and the relief of not having to quite nail down a direction yet means that this has more of an opportunity to develop, and you can sit with it while it's developing. Let's have a little look at this Page of Pentacles. Now, obviously, Pentacles represent Earth. Page of Cups, all the pages, and that's your element. So, you know, when we're talking about Pentacles, we're talking about how you invest in things, and Taurus likes to invest. It's what Taurus is about, right? And I think if you go back over the story of your life, you will see that you don't tend to half-ass things very often, right? When you invest, you're all in. And when you divest, you are all out. That's it, you're done. But with this Ten of Wands at the bottom of the deck, it's like there's an experience going on here that is quite unlike any that you've had before. And there may be a little bit of, there are things in the background that need to be sorted out. I wonder if this is because Mars is in Taurus. It's just that kind of slow and steady. We're not forcing anything. We're not having to charge from one thing to another. We can just sort of plot. Although there may be some things that are kind of tense in the background, things that require sorting out. With this Ten of Wands, this particular Ten of Wands and the Triple Goddess, which is the only one, I have to say, this is quite amusing, it's the only deck that I've got where somebody's actually put the fucking burden down. And it is a deck where all of the characters are female, which is really interesting, including the kings and whatnot. The only masculine figure in the whole deck is the Emperor, interestingly enough. It's not like you've completely jettisoned all your responsibilities or burdens or anything like that. It's recognising that there is always work to be done, but there's always space where, when necessary, you can actually stop and take a break. And I think that's what the genius of this particular version of the Ten of Wands is actually representing here. You know, we can see, the symbolism that we would usually associate with this card, which is there is an end destination. We can see it. We're not too far away from it. And whilst other interpretations of this deck that artists have employed show someone who is bent double under the weight of, what they're carrying, not too far away from home, so they're really, really digging in and pushing themselves to get there, this person's understood that the journey is as important, if not more so, than the destination. And there seems to have been a release of a kind of internal burden that you felt, Taurus, that is allowing you to enjoy where you are right now. Like in this moment, there is nothing sweeter for her than the fact that she's able to put the wands down. And we might associate that with a certain physical comfort, a removal of physical discomfort, let's put it that way, that feels incredibly sweet. You know, when you've been carrying something for a long time and you're like, oh my God, it's cutting into my hands, my back hurts, everything's awful. Just being able to put that down and stretch, just go, and realign everything. There's no sense here that she's just going to walk away from all of that. She knows there's work to be done. She's responsible, but she's pacing herself because it's more important that the job gets done full stop than that it gets done in a particular way. And I think it is this deviation from the way that you would normally do things and the way perhaps you might self-flagellate to get things done. The Taurian work ethic is legendary, let's not forget, right? But it doesn't have to be on 24 hours a day. In fact, it's the antithesis of a healthy approach to anything, to be trying to force something 24 hours a day. And you might have found in the not too distant past, I would say in the last 6 months, maybe a year, that there have been points where you've tried to force yourself to do things, and what's happened is you've ended up feeling less and less like you've got any control over everything that you're trying desperately to sort out. And this new way of approaching things that you've got now is like, no, we're going to do it sensibly. We're going to pace ourselves. So we're going to, do it up to here, and then we're going to stop. We're going to have a stretch. We're going to stretch our legs. We're going to maybe focus our eyes on something in the distance so that we don't end up all short-sighted and stuff. It seems like you've recognized where your power actually exists. And more importantly, there is a kind of sovereignty that is emerging here that says, yes, I can be absolutely outstanding. My work ethic can be second to none and all that kind of thing, but I am not going to overdo it. And rather counterintuitively, perhaps to a previous version of you, there is a way in which far more is getting done than when you were trying to force yourself to do it. I like the Ace of Wands a lot in this instance because, not only do we have the interaction, the dynamic between these two cards here, which is end and beginning, which is very, very nice. Whenever we get a 10, it's very nice to see a corresponding ace of the same suit showing up, because what we've got is a shift, a change going on here in the way that we do things. But also the fact that the Ace of Wands in and of itself can represent changed behaviour. Sometimes I see the Three of Wands like that as well. But there's a kind of novelty in the way that one is experiencing things that we see with the Ace of Wands that corresponds beautifully with this particular version of the Ten of Wands here. And then, this is notwithstanding these pages that are popping up everywhere, right? Page of Wands, Page of Cups, Page of Pentacles. The only thing that's missing here is the Page of Swords. And is the Page of Swords really necessary? We're not trying to work something out in our head. We're not trying to discern which piece of information is really important to us. It seems that you are listening to your body, Taurus, and it's actually guiding you really rather well. Now, like I said, we've got we're not at a place where decisions are needed to be made yet. We're just kind of going with the flow somewhat. And it's allowing what the pages bring, these two pages particularly, it's allowing them to slowly develop by way of both response, but most specifically experience, slowly develop this this sense of what is changing in the emotional landscape, but also in the sense of where the value is. Pentacles are always going to represent to some extent a value, and the value of your attention, the value of anything that you are investing, time, care, money, effort, love, energy, attention, right? These are all pentacle kind of propositions. And so we know that there's things are changing because you're creating the space to allow them to change. Because you are not whipping yourself to get things done, you can actually bear witness to these things as they're happening. And like I said, you're kind of going with the flow rather than forcing anything in any particular direction. And I love the fact that the Fool is showing up in the upright here, because there's something very fool-like about taking this approach. And remember, sometimes the Fool can represent a kind of foolish energy, right? Or it's the innocence, the naivete of childhood, right? Where devoid of experience, we don't know to look for the pitfalls. There's that kind of beginner's luck, or the luck of the young, right? That just kind of sees them narrowly escaping consequences. That's something, as we get older, we become acutely more aware of, is consequences, right? And sometimes we can veer a little too far in the way of consequence and be like, oh, I can't do that thing because the consequences thereof are. Remember that sometimes that's the way we talk about this card, right? What are the consequences of walking one road over another? And this seems to be let's explore the consequences of not actually fucking choosing either of them. Let's just be in the moment right now and see what shows up. The other way of looking at the Fool, though, if you think about where the idea of the Fool originated, and it's often attributed to the court jester. You know, we have a character who's very, very funny and was there for the entertainment of the king, right? So there was a lot of slapstick sort of falling over and all that kind of thing. And also, you know, sharp and insightful, incisive, perhaps, comments about guests who would come to the court that would, you know, reduce the king to tears of laughter. But the Fool, the jester, held a very, very privileged position with the king because of his, you know, foolish temperament, whatever, in so much as he was the only person who could ever actually deliver the truth to the king without suffering consequences of, you know, decapitation or whatever particular form of punishment the king would deal out to people who dared to challenge him on anything. The Fool occupied that space. And so there was always an inherent wisdom within the Fool. Just because it was delivered with, you know, comedic overtones, it didn't make it any less true. And so we have simultaneously, as you would expect in a card that represents everything and nothing simultaneously, in a card that represents the entirety of the tarot, it's all contained within here because this is pure potential, we would also have the idea that we've got something kind of childlike going on, but we've also got ancient fucking wisdom coming through this energy too. And be able to hold the contradiction that is in favour of simply just experiencing something. This marks such a dramatic departure from the you of, how long have I been on YouTube now? 7 years ago. The you of 7 years ago, that you're virtually unrecognisable. And I think you love it, Taurus. I really do. I think you're absolutely here for this. Because all of the benefits of the Taurian skill set that you have haven't gone away. But there's a developing context that is allowing you to see yourself differently and experience life differently. And while there is a novelty to this, and you know, the novelty is all over the cards, Page of Wands, Page of Cups, Page of Pentacles, the Fool, the Ace of Wands. Oh, is that the... It is indeed. The Ace of Pentacles underneath there as well. So you've got double aces, triple pages, and the Fool. And one assumes that there will be a point where the novelty wears off. At this point, you're just willing to sit with it for as long as it is what it is, until something presents itself as requiring a decision to be made. Now, let's have a look and see what aspect of your thinking or worldview or belief structure or whatever is up for revision right now. Let's come. There we go. So we have the Hermit and the Strength card. We have the Page of Swords now, who's come out. I'm going to pop him there because he kind of fell out to the right, but I do feel like he's got something to say. And we've now got 4 pages on the table. I mean, the new energy is all over this, Taurus. Let's have a look. Right, there's the fucking Fool again, but he's on his side this time. Oh my goodness. We've got the World and we've got the 3 of Pentacles. And one less. This is quite nuanced. It's quite complex. Fucking hell. Taurus, what are you up to? We've got the Queen of Wands at the bottom of the deck now, and I like her, and I like her anyway, but I really like her in the context of what is happening here. Because just like the Fool, there is something going on underneath that is deceptively complex as set against the energy as it's being experienced outside of you. Right? It's very nuanced. What do I mean by that? Right. Well, to all intents and purposes, on the outside of you, it looks like you're you're being a somewhat simple creature. You know, just enjoying chewing the grass and kind of gazing at the sun and enjoying the warmth of the sun on your skin, right? A simple creature enjoying simple pleasures. But there's a fierce intellect that is analysing the situation, not taking away from the enjoyment, but really able to see this objectively. And I love this because I'm not seeing any sense of judgment about what you're seeing here. The more I look at this, the more complex it becomes. And that's not a worrying thing. That's not anything to be afraid of. But it's just like that juxtaposition of the fool being both the representation of ancient wisdom and then the fierce intellect that lives in the centre of the fool's head. But what it looks like on the outside, it's like it would be a really easy period of time for people to completely underestimate you, Taurus. And even if they didn't underestimate you, I'm not sure that they would understand how nuanced the thinking is that's going on inside your head at the moment. Like you could sit somebody down and try to explain it to them, but I don't think that they would understand it. Because there's something very deft about the positions that you're moving through here, the analysis that you are weaving together of the world around you as you seem to be very peacefully looking at it. Now, it stands to reason that a lot of people would not understand how hard won this piece is that you have. Because you have to go through something to realise. I mean, this is what the beauty of the sun is, right? We've got in a similar way to the fool, actually. We have, we have a child, we have representations of innocence. We have that enjoying the sun on one's skin, right? The simple pleasures. But the sun represents a re-emergence after a really long, hard, dark night of the soul. Where what we've done is recalibrated and understood what is important. We've let an awful lot of things go in that underworld journey. And so we may appear as children to other people. But like the fool is that the wisdom of experience combined with a childlike wonder for what you see. So we have the Hermit and we have the Strength card. Internal resilience for days, for sure. But something, as we saw here in the pages, that is still in a process of development, and you're quite happy to let that stay inside there. Now, it doesn't actually need to be shared. It doesn't have to be seen. It certainly doesn't need to be validated, which is very, very interesting. But I think where the thinking possibly may need to shift is the extent to which you are responsible for and I don't this is why I think a lot of this is very nuanced, because it's not nearly as overt as it might have been for you a few years ago or even a year ago. It's feeling like you need to take on responsibility for those around you in order to bring them to the peaceful state that you're in. Now, that's not to say that there aren't ways in which you can help people. But we have two cards of endings here, between the World and the Ten of Cups. We've got some sort of transitional situation going on in either the family environment or community, the people around you, right? And there's something kind of acidic about the Ten of Cups, because it's this picture of the happily ever after and everybody's having a great time and it's wonderful. But there is baked into this the idea that the dynamic is changing, and it has to change. Why? Because the children grow up, the parents age. Sometimes we don't have a beautiful rainbow filling our cups with all sorts of wonderful things. Sometimes it's stormy as fuck. and maybe dad's just lost his job, and maybe mum's, you know, hit the bottle, or something like that, right? You know, that it doesn't have to go from really, really good to shit. Sometimes it's just simply that the dynamic changes. You know, the difference in the way that you speak to your children when they're 5 versus 15 is tangible. Why? Because they're different people now. They've developed a little bit more. There's a different kind of relationship going on. And the suffering, and there is suffering in the Ten of Cups, comes from when people can't accept that. Now, you seem to be aware of a changing family dynamic, a changing community dynamic, a change in the people around you. And maybe what you're aware of is people thinking that they're living a fairy tale that will never change. And you kind of see the other side of that. You're like, it is going to change soon. And this could be, you know, the community that you live in, your neighbourhood. This could be something a little bit bigger than that. I mean, you could be looking around at humanity and going, humanity are like children, and not in the good way necessarily. And when the difficult times come, when we move away from this idea that everything is convenient and wonderful and all this sort of thing and progress, hooray, when we start to see that that is ending, there's a big fucking shock in that, right? The difference between the cup suit and the sword suit is very fucking spiky in its experience, and that perhaps might be what you see coming down the road for humanity. But it might be much closer than that. It might be your own family situation. There will be a place in which you can see what others can't. But I think the challenge for you, and where I would ask you to challenge your thinking, is feeling like you need to help drag everybody along to the place that you're at. Because there's a process by which you got there. And your process definitely involved a sense of transition from this to this, right? And it might have been the emotional illusion that we were working under for a while that then got absolutely run through by, hey, guess what? Doesn't work like that. You know, there's sometimes a feeling of a kind of tower-like transition between these two cards right here. It's like, fuck. You know, I thought I was supported, and now suddenly I'm on my own and nobody's fucking speaking to me for no reason that I can work out at all. And I was just trying to be, you know, real. It can be very isolating. It can be very lonely. So you got to the peace that you've achieved by way of navigating those very difficult experiences, right? And this is why people can't quite understand how you've got to where you are. They appreciate that you are where you are, but they don't appreciate also what is going on underneath, because there's something very, very strong going on underneath. We've got a transition here from World to Three of Pentacles to Fool. Now, this on the face of it should be there should be a way in which you could read this that would say, we've all got to work together, and we've all got to cooperate, and we've all got to do a thing, right? But because that is what allows the world to transition into this more fool-like state that you have here. But remember that we're talking about things that are ripe for revision. In your thinking, in your belief system, in your world structure, as it sits in your head. So we have to tackle this and say, this is probably not how it's going to go down, Taurus. What do I need to know about these three cards here? Three of Pentacles specifically. So we have the King of Cups, that's Scorpio energy, and obviously that's your opposite sign in the zodiac. We've got the Ten of Cups, and we've got the Ace of Wands. We've got the same transition here now with the Empress at the bottom. Like, we've got the transition away from the old, and in both cases, Ten of Cups, to the new. I need to do things differently. I need to think about things differently. And that transition is jarring. Like that it's very rarely comfortable. This one too, it feels like quite a severe turn versus Ten of Cups and Ace of Cups. But I am drawn to this particular version of the King of Cups here. Is it the King? Oh, it's the Queen. Sorry, Queen of Cups. It's not actually written on, it's just a crown, and without the other crown to compare it to, I'm like, what the fuck is even this, right? It's the Queen of Cups here. And she looks sad. And I wonder if in some interesting way, you are feeling like you are probably going to have to do a lot of the donkey work to move everybody across here. From one state to another. And maybe that's why you've decided that you're okay resting where you are right now. But I would suggest that the kind of transition that you've been through and the way that you've processed it and all that kind of thing is not something that can necessarily be taught. It has to be experienced. And so the question that I would ask yourself with the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Wands at the bottom of the deck is, what is your underlying motivation in assuming responsibility for somebody else's path? Because there's layers going on here that feel like they're giving they're giving new information to you daily. Taurus card at the bottom of the deck here was strictly a Venus card at the bottom of the deck here with the Empress. The archetypal mother. I feel like you're constructing some sort of narrative in your head, Taurus, about something that isn't actually how this is going to play out. And while you are constructing this narrative in your head about how this is going to play out in a way that it won't, that there's something that is sitting right at the bottom of all of that, that has to do with that place that you move from. What do I mean by that? I think Taurus and Capricorn and Virgo, all earth signs, understand moving from a place of feeling responsible for things, right? There's a certain resourcefulness, there's a certain capability with earth signs, very practical, but actually, pretty genius problem solvers as well. And sometimes the creativity of the earth signs comes from resolving an issue rather than it coming from a place of pure creativity. And I'm wondering if, the thing that's lurking around at the bottom of all of this is the same thing that's always been there, Taurus, which is like, I worked out a thing and now I need to share it. Now I need to teach it to people. I've worked this out and now I can help other people work it out too. There's a reason why you are, the natural teacher of the zodiac, because this is always your thing, right? Now, I don't think you're at the point where you're trying to affect that yet, because we know that there is something developing here that is shifting around, and you're aware of that too. And to all intents and purposes, what it is shifting. You're allowing it to be, recognizing that this is a solitary thing for you, but there seems to be a little knob or something underneath there that is, it feels like a hope. that you can circumvent all of the difficulty that you experienced, or you can assist other people circumvent all the difficulty that you experienced by kind of leaping straight to the answer. This is the way, this is the thing. And I don't think that that's how this is going to go down. Why? Because the struggle and the suffering and the jarring energy and the the almost maybe like the Uranian fucking shock of things when they happen, and then the way that you've had to slowly work through them, slowly process all of it. It is actually how you got to where you are. And this can't be taught, it has to be experienced. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because this little hope here, it means it's taking a little of the creativity away from the pure spring of it, and it's having it show up in this little secret part of you that hopes you can kind of swoop in and save everything at a point where it's necessary. You can teach everybody how to work together really, really well, and avoid the difficulty, avoid the drama. 3 of Pentacles, please. The Tower. But you can't appreciate the energy of the Star until you've experienced the Tower. You can't sit in a place of hope until you've had everything kicked over. What I'm saying here, Taurus, is the path that you are on is for you right now. There may well be points in the future where more of this teacher-like energy can start to come through. And I wouldn't seek to eradicate hope from your being. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, when you look at how you are, when you look at the underlying motivations for your actions, why do I do this thing? Why do I do it this way versus that way? Right? There's a little part of you that is siphoning off pure creativity and pure experience in favour of, I'm keeping a database of all of these things that I know, so that when the time comes I can tell people, and then we don't have a tower situation. I quite literally said it was quite tower-like. The transition between, a 10 of cups and an ace of swords, or an ace of wands. These are not elements that commonly enjoy each other. Water plus air doesn't work. Water plus fire doesn't work. It does work, right? But there's not a simpatico between those. The wands and the swords are externally expressing. Right? Something is generated within and it's projected outward. They are masculine elements right there. Water and earth are internal. They take into themselves. They're more passive. They process stuff internally. What I'm trying to say is there's no amount of external expression from you that is going to save a tower that is incoming. Even though you would like to, for the benefit of friends, of family, of community, maybe even humanity if you're operating on that level, right? This must be experienced. Because in the same way that you've been on this long, slow journey towards this state of enlightenment that you seem to be rocking right now, like, you can't create shortcuts for people. You can be there to guide on the other side of that, but you can't circumvent the very necessary ruptures that happen. Think about if somebody had sat you down, Taurus. Let's say Aries had sat you down in 2018 and said to you, right, you're about to have Uranus ripping through your sign for the next 8 years, and rather than you experiencing loss, rather than you experiencing all of the ways in which Uranus came and threw a grenade into your life, instead you just need to know these things. right? Just know those things, and then none of that stuff will happen. Would it have changed your life in the way that the experience of the rupture did? Would it have come close to the transformative depths that all of these events have created for you? Just the words from somebody else? Or did you have to experience it? The irony of the Tower is the more that we try and avoid it, the more it shows up, right? Because it's a course correction. And so what needs to change here is the idea that you can save people from themselves. Maybe even in small ways, subtle ways, nuanced ways, but you can help steer them away from difficulty. You can steer them away from collapse. You can steer them away from rupture. The reality is, whatever those ruptures or collapses or whatever in front of them are, they are necessary points of course correction on their journey that have to be personally experienced. It's not really for you to come in and try and do that for them. Because they will never, ever experience this on the level that you're experiencing it without that. So it's not about the eradication of hope, because there will be ways in which you can assist on this journey, but it really should not be steering away from the Tower. It should be preparing to come help clean up the mess afterwards. Processing. The event itself is going to happen. This is my favourite Tower card of just about any Tower card I've ever seen, by the way. You can see that. Because I looked at it for like a second and I was like, why the fuck is that the Tower? That doesn't make any sense. And I realised it's all down to the cat, because the cat tells you the orientation of this card actually should be this. But when the Tower hits, it does feel like the world has just fucking shifted 45 degrees under your feet. And now you're smacking your head off the rock and you're like, what the fuck even happened? That's the energy of the Tower. That's the energy of Uranus. A Tower that is averted by somebody else never has the impact on the person the Tower was headed towards than of personal experience. There will be plenty of opportunity for you to share your wisdom. There will be plenty of opportunity for you to help and be of service to others. But you have to let people walk their own path. Do you see what I mean, Taurus? These little nudges, these little corrections, they're not going to stop anything. What is the next step for Taurus? Where's the Wheel of Fortune? Knight of Wands and the Seven of Wands with the Seven of Pentacles. I mean, there's to some extent there's rather a feat of endurance ahead of you, Taurus. In so much as there are going to be things that you're going to see with thine own eyes, and you're going to know for fucking certain where these things are going to go. For other people, you're just going to know it. Yeah. Why? Because you've walked that path. You see, you know exactly where that is going to go. And despite everything, you're going to have to sit on your hands and watch people go there. It's literally the opposite of everything that you are, that you have to sit and watch people go there, and yet it's what the situation needs from you. And that's going to take some courage. It's going to take a lot to understand that, in order to ascertain what the actual problem is, like, people actually have to trip over the problem. Like, the nudging away, distracting from the problem is just kicking it down the road. It's... It's like everybody loves the idea of or people kind of getting on really, really well and whatnot. But where we take that to an extreme, whereby we cannot bring up things that we are dissatisfied with, right? Oh, you should be grateful for that. Okay, well, you've just totally cut my legs out from underneath me. No, you just told me I don't have a legitimate grievance here, when maybe I do. We can't be assertive in that situation and say, like, no, the way that you're treating me here is not okay. Here is a fucking boundary, and you're trying to headbutt it. Like, that's not all right. When we prioritize this collective well-being, which is effectively what I feel like you're trying to do here, over allowing people to experience a point of confrontation, such that then people learn things like conflict management. We have the underlying issue solved much faster than when everybody's pretending to be happy when actually they fucking hate each other, or they're not happy, or one person is being a bit of an arse and the other person is legitimately upset about this. Like, you have to let this story play out, whatever it is, whoever you're involved with. You have to let this story play out a little bit, because the Wheel of Fortune is here as well. And you'd better believe that if the Tower and the Wheel of Fortune are here simultaneously, something very, very important in the story is occurring right now. Let's not pretend that you have the big picture, because you don't at this point. You can see the details, you can see the stitches that are being created, and you know what picture it will develop eventually. But it feels like there's a necessity for this to play out the way that it is, rather than being in the right here, right now, and the nudging away from here and there and everything. You're gonna have to actually suspend a little bit of action. Gonna have to sit on your hands and watch it happen, and be brave enough to trust that other people will also be able to endure what you have endured, and gain the same fucking benefit from it. That's going to be really testing for you, Taurus. Really testing. They say a picture says 1,000 words, but an experience, it's maybe 10,000 words, 100,000 words. Whether it's about confrontation or whether it's something else, something that is changing, something that is evolving, let it play out. And understand that the peace that you have right now, it's not meant to be experienced by other people. There's a reason why you have it right now. And it's off the back of all of this. Don't deny others the experience to get to where you are, but don't feel like you have to bring them there. Do you see what I mean, Taurus? And that's going to be really difficult. It's really difficult. So, I'm going to go to the extended now. You're very welcome to join me over there if you would like to. You can do that on Selfie, you can do that on Circle. I would be delighted to see you in either place. And I dig into this a little bit more, because there's the quality here of you watching a slow motion train wreck. And you desperately want to get in there and stop it. But you shouldn't. I'm going to go to the extended because I think I've got loads of things to say, and if I keep talking, we're going to be here for another 49 minutes, Taurus. So I'm going to go now. Props to the way that you are handling life right now. Gold star, top of the class. That's really, really good stuff. But we were looking for problems, and this is one right here. So know that you're doing great, but also know that you need to sit on your hands for a little bit here. Let it play out. All right. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.